We're looking at the current news that the European Commission has suspended all emissions trading on the ETS. Supposedly, they're going to start trading against today on the 26th of January. They suspended trading due to several security breaches that resulted in 7 million euros in credits reportedly being stolen. Do you think suspending trading was the correct action by the EC?
Personally, I think suspending the ETS system was definitely the right thing to do. I think the fact that they've gone public with it, it's very, very good. Obviously, they have a big reputation to maintain. The concerning thing is that these vulnerabilities weren't exposed or found prior to them going live or during a period of time. In addition, there should be an immense amount of audit trail for them to understand where the attacks have come from, where the credits have been transferred to, and more importantly, I would be concerned about the authentication into the system and how the authentication is happening. And more importantly, it should be treated like any banking trading platform where there's a form of transactional authentication being taken place.
Yeah, I mean, the PricewaterhouseCoopers put out a note today saying that the EC should invest more in this type of security. So what are some of the areas that you think they should put their money in?
Well, for the amount of money they've lost, it certainly would cost, literally 1% of the amount of money they've cost them in the breach, in the reputation. Some basics would be two-factor authentication, transactional authentication. Treat it as if it was an online banking system. It's credits, it's real money. Treat it as a true asset and apply basic security principles and framework standards around it, which are publicly available.
Moving on from carbon trading, we've had some comment recently from researchers at Cambridge University that chip and PIN isn't as secure as advertised, and a lot of banks are ramping up their offerings in mobile and contactless. So, where are the security holes in this type of banking services from a hacker's perspective?
I think in relation to EMV, which is Europay, MasterCard and Visa, it's a standard which has been backed by government. There's always going to be a concern or the ability to compromise a particular standard. Now, the way the student is basically created a smart card detective, like a device that essentially intercepts the communication between the card reader, the card, and it sits in the middle. Essentially, it acts like a man in the middle of attack. I think it's very, very worrying. It's very scary that the government have backed a particular standard. However, it can be solved very, very easily. The problem is you've got a PIN number that's static, that never changes. You've got a credit card that is static. There needs to be a random variable every single time. So if one element is compromised, the other element is a variable. So able to compromise that, it's always changing. And in normal information security world, we call that two-factor authentication. Something you have, something you know. The something you have is a random number that is generated all the time. In addition to that, there should be some form of mutual authentication. So you apply technologies that are in place now and apply that to payment standards like credit cards, your problem solved.
You used to be an ethical hacker. I mean, how did you get into that business, and have you worked with any major banks?
So I've been in information security for going on plus 15 years. For 6 years of my life, I was an ethical hacker. And yes, I have been engaged with a number of the Fortune 100, if not most of them. I've worked with pretty much a large number of banks all around the world. And I have seen various degrees of security breaches, various vulnerabilities. It doesn't matter how big or how small your organisation is, you're always going to be vulnerable unless you keep one step ahead and, first of all, implement the basics and do basic risk management within your organisation.